first step on our top is to pinch and pin in some darts. I put mine on the princess seams, and then I also did some more on kind of the side to match up with the apex of the bust right here, which I've never tried before, but it did end up giving me a much better fit, so I'd highly recommend it. Sew those darts in, and then we take some tailor's chalk and mark out the neckline. I'm doing a single shoulder neck just for a lovely vintage feel, so I use my tailor's chalk to mark out the neckline and also the arm hole. Then I take picking shears because I really wanted to go a little more authentically vintage on this, since I was so inspired by 40s and 50s dresses, very Audrey Hepburn, and the pinking shears were my great-grandmother's, so it seemed to fit very, very nicely. Pinking shears will make sure the edges of your fabric don't fray, but they are very difficult to cut with, so I would go in with a little bit of caution, but they're fantastic for finishing your edges. Ta-da! Then we repeat the process on the back. Of course, we don't need to add in darts because you don't have any curves on your back, but I marked out my lines and then I'm cutting it again using pinking shears. And don't worry if you don't have pinking shears, they're not necessary, just a fun little decor detail, or structural detail actually. One little tip for you if you are draping on a mannequin such as this is to never pull your fabric while you're draping. Pulling your fabric can kind of distort the lay of the fabric so that when you're done it doesn't sit properly on you as it did on the mannequin when you were pinning it so tightly. So just make sure you're always smoothing it with your hand and not actually tugging on it while you pin and cut. Depending on the desired length of your bodice, you can either cut away the excess or leave it just as it is. I decided to cut away my excess, but kind of wish I would have left it just a little bit longer because on my body it sits on a different place, so it's just a tad high for my preference, but no harm, no foul. And boom, the bodice is done, and now we can move on to the skirt. My formula for the skirt worked fantastically in my head, but slightly different in practice, so you might want to take a different approach, but here's how I did it. I laid out the remaining part of my fabric on my cutting table and cut it in half so that I would have 2 panels for my skirt. Then I took the longest straight edge I could find and marked out from corner to corner using my tailor's chalk. Cut along that line. Then in the top corner of the 2 triangles I just cut, I took my waist measurement, divided it in half, and made a line that long. I have a 30-inch waist, and so I added on for seam allowance, which ended up being a 16-inch line across the top. I cut across the line and that was my skirt done. The only reason I don't recommend this method is I thought my skirt was going to be a lot longer than it ended up being. It's still plenty long, but because I'm a little bit taller, I'm 5'10", with heels, the skirt doesn't quite touch the ground, but if you're a bit shorter, this method would work perfectly. Next, we give everything a real good iron, and now time for my favorite part, adding in pockets! To get the general shape for this pocket, I trace around my hand and my phone just to make sure so that it'll fit in, so that I can fit my phone, my keys, my house, my dog, and basically anything else I need in these massive pockets. Just follow a general pocket shape, kind of looking here. It's an oval, and then you're going to want to make a straight out part that will attach to the side of your skirt so that you can slip everything in and it won't be too bulky. We will cut out 4 of these pieces because each pocket takes 1 side each, so 2 per pocket. Then going to the top of our skirt piece, you're going to mark how far down you want the pocket pieces. I did mine 4.5 inches down, laid the pocket down, and then pinned it in place. You'll do this on each side of the skirt, facing right sides together. Sew those pieces together on each side of the skirt and then press every pocket piece inwards. For now, we're only going to sew one side together, so start from the top, sew around the pocket, and then down the side. Right now, we're just going to leave the other side open so that we can attach the zipper from the top of the bust all the way down and into the skirt. Now, I forgot to film this part, but we are going to attach the 2 bodice pieces together on one side so they'll match up with the skirt that we just did on the one side. And now we're going to attach those 2 pieces, matching the seams and pinning along each side. Attach the bodice to the skirt, and next we're going to move on to the train. To start, we're going to hem all of the edges on the top of the bodice using a double rolled hem. Depending on how fluffy you want this magnificent train to be, select a width that's right for you. I think I did about 24 inches. Mark on your fabric and then cut out in a straight line. The train's just pretty much a very long rectangle with the width of your choosing and about your height. Then we will iron the hems on the train so that it's a lot easier to sew. We're just hemming the two long sides of the train and the bottom part. You don't need to hem the top. To gather, use a basting stitch, which is just the longest stitch on your machine, and sew 2 rows of it. Don't backstitch or you won't be able to gather it. Grab the bobbin threads and just gently tug. This will create a gorgeous gathering effect. Lastly, we're going to sandwich our train in between the 2 pieces of our straps on the bodice. Take your gathered train and place it on top of one piece, and you're going to sandwich the other piece of the strap right sides together and pin. Finish off any rough edges and trim any extra threads, and we are all done! Final thoughts on this dress are, I love it. I love the vintage feel. I love how it twirls. My few hiccups were fitting the bodice. I originally intended to fit it on myself to make a tutorial on how to fit without a dress form. But I'm recovering from abdominal surgery, so it was a little bit tricky to have lots of pins and scissors near me. So I will definitely do that another time. Another thing was my formula for the skirt was a little bit off, so it's just a bit too short when I wear heels. Other than that, the one thing I did find that I needed to do was reducing the bulk at the attachment of the train. It made it a lot more comfortable, and that would be my one tip. But the bust I would have loved to have fit on myself because I am not quite like my mannequin. But I will definitely do that in another video. And can we take a moment to appreciate the pockets? They're huge. I could fit my phone, my wallet, my date, my dog, my house, and pretty much everything in between in these pockets. They are fantastic, and they don't hinder my twirling, which is mwah. But overall, I'm so excited for my prom. I hope I actually get to go to it. And if you make this dress, I would love to see it. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed viewing it as much as I did making it. Hope you have a fantastic day. Love you.